Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with the story of instant workplace karma, a tale of arrogance, rule-breaking, and the sweet satisfaction of watching it all unravel. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Karen refused to listen to me, then got herself fired for fraud. When I was hired as a supervisor in my department, I had previously worked there for about 4 years. I hadn't been in the department for 8 months before being promoted. I was likely given the position because I had extensive knowledge of the products and company. I was assigned to my team, and most people on the team already knew me. However, there was one recent hire who didn't. We can call her Baby Karen. Baby Karen was about 23, heavy on the makeup, with an attitude of self-importance that matched her haircut. I had a bad feeling about her, but I tried to push past it. Turns out, I was right. Day one, I was doing my job listening to calls, ensuring everything was running smoothly, taking notes. Then it was Baby Karen's turn. Not only was her tone indifferent to hostile, but the information she was giving was also completely wrong. I marked the call and sent her an IM to speak with her. When she came up, I had another supervisor with me since he knew her better and had been in the position for over a year. I explained what had happened and how she could improve. Her response was a curt, "No, you're wrong." I knew I was right, and the other supervisor confirmed it. He also explained that I had years of experience and knew what I was talking about. She continued to insist that I was wrong, that I didn't know what I was talking about, etc. This wasn't a write-up or anything official, just a simple, "Hey, we caught this, please don't do it again." After arguing with me for half an hour without any solid evidence, she went back to work, and I called the customer to correct the issue. The next few days, Baby Karen was nothing but attitude and side eyes. Whatever, I wasn't there to be liked, I was there to do my job. Now the revenge part. The following week, I was greeted by a coworker, Red, who worked in a department that tracked sales, account inquiries, and a few other things. She had some interesting information for me. Red had run a report showing that Baby Karen had recently made a purchase during a sale for a product through our company. Making purchases while on the clock was strictly forbidden because one could exploit insider knowledge. This alone could be a terminal offense, but it wasn't the first time an employee had done it. So I didn't think she would be fired immediately. I figured it would result in a final write-up and she'd be warned never to do it again. However, I had to cover myself and do what I thought was right. I took it to my manager. He was a decent guy, but I knew what he would do with this info. Using his manager powers, he had a report run on Baby Karen's account. Not only had she made the purchase while on the clock, but she also went into the back-end system and manipulated her account to refund most of the money while keeping the order processed. Big no-no. When my manager told me this, he said he'd handle it. He then went to the director's office. About 30 minutes later, Baby Karen was called into HR. I didn't know all the details, but from the rumor mill, I heard Baby Karen pitched a fit and slammed doors on her way out, screaming that we'd be hearing from her lawyer. Either way, I smiled for the rest of the day, knowing I didn't have to deal with her anymore. Baby Karen really speed ran her way out of a job, huh? First weekend, she picks a fight with her new supervisor over basic corrections, doubles down on being loud and wrong, then immediately commits fraud like no one would notice? Impressive. Sadly for her, her confidence in her abilities to manipulate became the rope to make her the cliché that she is. And our second story. My boss loved morning calls, until HR stepped in. A few years ago, I worked a 9-to-5 salaried job with overtime pay in Europe. It was a solid job, great colleagues, a good work environment, and even my boss was competent and relatively nice. My office had flexible hours, meaning we only had to be present during core hours, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and outside of that, we could choose when to start and finish our work as long as we completed our 38.5 hours per week. Being decidedly not a morning person, I usually arrived just before 10 a.m. and stayed later in the evening. It worked well for me. I was productive, I communicated during core hours, and no one had any complaints. Well, except my boss. She, on the other hand, was an early bird, always in the office by 7:45 a.m. sharp. She also had a habit of constantly needing to touch base about the day's agenda. Even though she knew I wasn't in until 10 a.m., she started calling me on my way to work at 9 a.m., treating it like a daily check-in. At first, it happened a few times a week, but over time it became a daily occurrence. These calls lasted 15 to 25 minutes and were essentially stand-up meetings, except she was sipping her morning coffee in the office and I was barely awake, half listening on public transport. Attempts to set boundaries? Ignored. I tried multiple times to hint that this was not ideal, but she just brushed it off as just a quick chat and kept doing it. I suggested waiting until I got to the office. She ignored that. I tried leaving work a bit earlier since I was working extra time in the mornings. She shut that down, saying phone calls didn't count as work time. I even forced myself to wake up earlier so I could log the calls as work hours, but then she started calling me even earlier. And the kicker? If I ever let the call go to voicemail, she would call multiple times like it was an emergency, only for it to be the same pointless check-in about things I already knew. The turning point. Then came the day when I actually had an urgent question that couldn't wait, but she'd already left for the day. I sent her an email, no response. An hour passed. So I did what she always did to me. I called her once. She picked up, sounding annoyed. We had a short, to-the-point conversation, and as we wrapped up, she hit me with, "Just for the future, I don't like being called outside of work hours. If you need something, ask me while I'm still in the office." Oh really? That was all I needed to hear. The best petty revenge, getting paid for every second. From that day forward, I logged every single morning call as work time. Since I was the one who managed our timesheets, she didn't see it before they were submitted to HR at the end of the month. By the time the month ended, I had multiple days where my recorded work hours exceeded the legal daily maximum, which was a major compliance issue in our country. When HR saw this, they called me immediately. "HR, we noticed some irregular work hours in your timesheet. Why are you working outside standard hours?" Me. "Oh, that's just my boss calling me every morning before my shift starts. I log those calls as work time since she requires me to take them." HR. Silence. Then a very polite, "We'll take care of it." The day of reckoning. The very next morning, she casually mentioned she had a meeting with HR thinking it was about some new workplace policy. She came back from that meeting red in the face. HR had ripped her a new one about forcing employees to work outside of scheduled hours and pushing them past legal work limits. That same day, she finally asked me if those morning calls were really a problem for me. For the first time ever, she actually listened. I told her honestly, I was groggy in the morning and not productive on those calls. If she wanted a daily check-in, she could just send an email. If she really needed a meeting, we could do it when I was actually at work and had coffee too. The aftermath. Peace at last. After that, she never called me in the morning again. Instead, we set up an official daily check-in at 10 a.m. when I was actually in the office and fully awake. And you know what? We actually got along better after that. She even relaxed a bit and started listening more to my input in general. Moral of the story? You don't always have to yell or argue to get justice. Sometimes you just let HR do it for you. It's hilarious how she was totally fine disrupting your mornings, but the one time you called her outside her precious work hours, she snapped. The hypocrisy, the entitlement. And the final touch is that you ended up with a boss who actually respected your time and input. That is how you play the long game. 10 for 10 petty revenge. And HR, for once, did their actual job. And our next story. I don't care if you have a policy on painkillers. Sell them to me. The store I work at has a policy where a customer can only purchase 2 packs of painkillers. They can't get someone else to buy for them if they already have 2 in their shopping or put 2 on another transaction. As I was at the till serving one particular customer, let's call her Karen, I noticed she had 2 packs of paracetamol and 2 ibuprofen. I'd already scanned a few items before I got to them. Me, I'm sorry, but I'm only allowed to sell you 2 of these, I'm afraid. Karen, I'll just put other 2 on a separate transaction. Me, I can't let you do that, I'm afraid. Karen, well then, let my daughter buy the other 2. Me, I'm not allowed to do that either, I'm afraid. It's against store policy. Karen's eyes widened in rage. I'd like to speak with your manager. Me, who's had enough of Karen BS. I'll call management, but they'll tell you what I told you. My manager wasn't on shift that day, but my duty manager was, so I called them instead. DM, is everything okay? Me, indicating that Karen was irate, I see a queue forming at my till, so I call another 2 tills to open to bring the queues down. Karen, she looks at me, telling me my daughter can't buy these, indicates to the painkillers. Me to my DMC, they were in her shopping. DM to Karen, because you've been told you can't purchase them, there's nothing I can do. Karen, eyes widened even more. She turns her bag upside down and the stuff I've already scanned through falls out. I don't want these anymore. Karen and her daughter then storm off, wasting her own time in the process. The gentleman behind her had a little chuckle with me after she left. I had to have my DM cancel the transaction, and the shopping she didn't want had to be put back. This one is a classic. Often there's also a sign next to the painkillers explaining the policy, and the customer always thinks this doesn't apply to them. I mean, she could have asked to buy one of each and then go buy it at another store or come back the next day. And our last story. Blocking my driveway? Enjoy your unexpected shower and a ticket. Many years ago, on a scorching summer day, our neighbors across the street decided to hold a yard sale. Nothing unusual, just a typical weekend event. That is, until we opened our garage door to take the kids out for some ice cream and were met with an enormous camper completely blocking our driveway. At first, we figured it'd be a quick stop. Maybe the owners had just popped into the yard sale and would be back in a minute. Wrong. We waited 10 minutes. No sign of them. So I called the neighbors hosting the sale and asked if they could tell the camper owners to move. They said they'd pass along the message. A few seconds later, I heard one of the camper owners yell from the sale, "They need to mind their own damn business. We'll move when we're ready." Oh, really? Another 5 minutes went by. The kids were getting restless. They wanted their ice cream, and I wanted my driveway clear. That's when I noticed something. The camper's passenger window and a bedroom window were wide open due to the heat. And that's when an idea hit me. I casually grabbed the lawn sprinkler, set it up right next to my driveway, and turned on the water. Not only did the refreshing spray keep my lawn hydrated, but it also gently misted the entire side of the camper. 5 minutes passed, no movement. 10 minutes passed, still nothing. By the 15-minute mark, the camper owners finally returned, and they were furious. They stormed over, shouting about how their camper was getting wet, demanding to know what the hell I was doing. As luck would have it, our next-door neighbor, who just so happened to be an on-duty police officer on his lunch break, pulled into his driveway at that exact moment. He saw the commotion, came over, and asked what was going on. I calmly explained that we'd been waiting for nearly half an hour, that we asked politely for them to move, and that they had refused, telling us they'll leave when they were ready. Officer next door didn't look impressed. He turned to the camper driver and said, "Sir, I need you to move your vehicle immediately." The camper owner grumbled, but complied. But it didn't end there. Once the camper was finally out of my driveway, officer next door pulled out his notepad and told the driver, "I need your license, vehicle registration, and proof of insurance." The camper owner's face dropped. Within minutes, the officer handed him a ticket for obstructing a driveway, a hefty fine, as I found out later. To say they were unhappy would be an understatement. As they climbed into the camper to drive off, I swear I heard a loud squish as one of them sat down. Guess the sprinkler did its job after all. I would have had it towed, and then when they showed up asking where it was, I would explain that it had to be towed as my partner had to get to work and we had no idea where they were. I'd say this even if I was single. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.